this is part of what we're doing as the Sanford Stem Cell Institute. I'm the Sanford Stem Cell Institute Director, Katrina Jameson. I go by Kat. And what we're trying to do now is show you what our different centers have to offer. And that's so we can help everyone be incredibly successful in getting grants, getting industry contracts, and getting substantial philanthropy. I was reading the Washington Post just a week ago, and they said that 38% of all science is funded by philanthropy. And so it means that if we can communicate our science effectively, we might actually be able to get it to the clinic, but it's always the tripartite funding structure, industry, academia, philanthropy, in my experience, when it comes to making something that ultimately gets FDA approved and is readily available to anyone. So I'd like to shout out the names. No, we have our philanthropy team stand. We've got Nick here. Everybody, if you see Kirsten in the back here, we've got our communications team. We have Jeannie here. Debbie is helping to set up all these symposia. So we're trying to communicate your science. We have a lot of people. How many people here are scientists? Okay. How many people are physicians? How many people are involved in administration? Okay, so we kind of, the whole gamish of people here, which is great. Michelle Ortiguera, our executive director of the Sanford Stem Cell Institute, is here. We're really thrilled to be able to help with shepherding some of your best ideas to the clinic with the Sanford Stem Cell Clinical Center. We're very pleased to have Jameson Languth here. He's our director of clinical operations for the Sanford Stem Cell Clinical Center and does much, much more. So we'll see Jameson helping us to plan some very big initiatives. We've got Sheldon Morris, who's the director of the Sanford Stem Cell Clinical Center here. He has his MPH from Harvard on mathematical modeling of epidemic disease spread and also clinical trials development. So he's applied that training very effectively here at UC San Diego, mostly to work on infectious disease trials, and he's working very hard to make sure stem cell trials come to fruition here. Sandeep Patel is the deputy director of the Sanford Stem Cell Clinical Center and really gifted in coming up with immunotherapy strategies to really help our patients with cancer. And now those immunotherapy strategies that Dr. Patel has pioneered are actually becoming very important for autoimmune diseases and something that we're very interested in, Parkinson's disease and multiple system atrophy. So I think we're going to really look at diseases through the stem cell lens, knowing that our immune system comes from our stem cells. So I'm thrilled to be able to open this town hall. This town hall is for you. It's to say, how do we help with your research? How do we all win as a campus? And the incredible thing, the magic sauce for this campus is we work together. So UC San Diego will reign supreme because we'll collaborate, we'll share ideas, and we'll share them in real time. So thanks everyone for being here. I'll start with Sheldon Morris. Here you go.
I'm Sheldon Morris. I'm the director of the Sanford Stem Cell Clinical Center, and for my 20 years here at UC San Diego, I've kind of been working mainly doing clinical research and clinical trials. And so what I'm going to do today is to walk you through a little bit of what we do at the Sanford Stem Cell Clinical Center, some of the trials that we're running, and then I'm going to turn it over to our Deputy Director, Sandeep Patel, to go into some more detail specifically about some of our clinical operations and more on some of our oncology, which you'll see is also a big part of what we do. You just met Dr. Jameson, who is the director of the Sanford Stem Cell Institute, which most of you probably already are aware, but if you're not, it's a institute that was funded through philanthropy from Denny Sanford. Our goal is really to be a leader in regenerative medicine and developing that innovation, and we really embrace the sort of bench to bedside model, and that because we try and take it all the way to make new cures for people. That's kind of our goal, and we have 6 centers, and you may be aware of them. I'm going to talk about quickly what the structures of the institute and where we sit as the Sanford Stem Cell Institute. and how the Alpha Clinic, which you may have heard of, the CIRM-funded Alpha Clinic, how that resides within the clinical center. So here is the structure of the institute. You know, the director is Dr. Jameson, and then you see that we have Michelle as well as our executive in charge of all administration. And then the 6 centers. Here I am on your right. I know that's on your left. And then the different gig and bench to bedside, you know, sort of concept kind of filters through all these pillars of the institute. We have some basic discovery. We have the Advanced Therapy Center, which run by Dan Kaufman, is about, you know, making those cellular products so that they are it can be used in our FDA regulated trials. There's a lot of that goes into making sure that we have quality products and making it to those standards. You may be aware of sort of the big space sort of exploration and studies that are done as part of our iScore pillar. Multiple space missions that have been done by Dr. Motri and Dr. Jameson. And then Dr. Kiseliva running our stem cell fitness and space. And she really focuses, she's doing some liver organoids in space, and also a big focus on longevity. And then innovation, which kind of trying to bridges that gap between, you know, when you have that, you know, the investigators out there, you're starting to have a project where you think you might have a product that goes into, you know, you want to bridge that into a discovery center and then take that into our center to try to make that first in human study. Because that's a lot of what we do. We do clinical studies in regenerative medicine. I'm going to talk, I have a whole slide on terms of what we see as regenerative medicine and what are those types of products that we work on. Kind of, we take it, you know, there's a wide range of products that fit into this role. But how do you pull that off is to have, you know, multiple groups within our clinical center that help that along. So maybe I'll start at the START team, because the START team is a group of program managers run by Vicki Scheckler. And what they do is they help investigators, like maybe yourselves, you know, try to go from, okay, I have this great product. Well, what do I have to do to get the preclinical work to get to the first in human study? Because you have to, of course, start getting all the work done to get an IND or an equivalent sort of an FDA sort of clearance to get that product doing. There's a lot of work that has to be done, how you interact with the FDA. The other thing that they're experts in is in CIRM grants. CIRM grants can be quite difficult or complicated, and they can really assist you if you're looking to get one of the new CIRM grants. And there, you know, there's always new iterations of CIRM grants that you have to keep on top of, and our team is always trying to, you know, give that information to investigators, like, well, this is what they want in that section, this is what they want in that section. To do the actual clinical trials, we need a whole team of people. We have an inpatient and an outpatient component. In our outpatient component, the Coleman Outpatient Pavilion on the 3rd floor, they can be seen for their clinical trial visits. Then, you know, when they have to have, you know, procedures done, you know, like cellular therapies, stem cell therapies, gene therapies, these things often require hospitalization. So we have an inpatient unit, and that's what Dr. Patel is going to talk about some more. We also are engaged in a lot of training and education. We have 2 fellows usually every year in regenerative medicine that we've started that program, trying again to get people that will train in how the inpatient gun, how does the clinical side end, but also in the research side, and how those 2 things merge. I also teach extensively in our MAS program in clinical research and how to design clinical research, ethics of clinical research, and most importantly at our translational regenerative medicine course, which teaches the concepts around that bench to bedside in the realm of regenerative medicine. So what is regenerative medicine? Well, it's the treatments that are focused on repairing, replacing, or regenerating damaged tissues and organs to restore normal function. We see that there's a multiple types of products that fit into this rubric. You might think of stem cells would be one of the first things you would think of. And I think more and more we're seeing these induced pluripotent stem cells as a source of making products. But we still have other autologous and allogeneic products that are being made, and much less so the embryonic related products. But we also do gene therapies, particularly those that involve gene manipulation of stem cells that are then put into people to try to modify disease. Cellular therapies have become a very big part of what we do. Recently, the success of chimeric antigen receptor T cells has been really explosive, and then we see a lot of those studies, and that's reflected in a lot of the oncological targets that we oversee. And then we don't neglect small molecules. Small molecules can still be targeting stem cell pathways. Those are important for cancer and for multiple other diseases, and so those are still within that regenerative medicine possible treatments. Devices. I'm going to even highlight one of our device studies here that goes into how we deliver those stem cells. Cellular matrices, I think they still fit into the device, but they're not real, or maybe they're a biological product, but they're not a cell, they're not that, but there's other ways that you can support regeneration. And then finally, diagnostics. We have an expert in stem cell imaging with Eric Ahrens. The idea is that you have to be able to look at how those endpoints are measured or how to screen people. That's why we have companion diagnostics, and we have studies that screen people who might be candidates for future therapy. So those are other things that all can fit within the studies that we do. I wanted to touch upon Alpha Clinic. Alpha Clinic is funded through California Institute of Regenerative Medicine. They've been doing this. We were one of the first Alpha Clinics here at UC San Diego. I think I started, 2014 maybe? Which one?
2015.
2015. And then there's currently 9 Alpha Clinics in California. And the goal of CIRM is to, again, accelerate clinical trials that are, in the regenerative medicine field. And I think I want to make a point that, we definitely are highly involved in CIRM-funded clinical trials and clinical studies. But I would say the majority of our studies now coming in are industry, and those are an important, another avenue of where we're getting clinical trials. And there's a lot of activity in the pharmaceutical world on regenerative medicine products. Here's a quick overview of our current studies. We're supporting about 37 different clinical trials within our clinical team, many of them that are here in the audience. And you'll see that we still have a very large component that is oncology, if you see in the pie chart. I'll let Dr. Patel talk to more to it, but obviously a lot of these are these CAR T therapies and others. I was going to spend a little time talking about how we've really expanded to other fields and how it crosses over many of the different specialties in medicine. Particularly neurology has been a field where we've really seen a lot of interest and where we are starting to really get a lot of momentum around different studies. We've also done infectious disease, and of course, close to me in terms of doing an HIV cure study. We're doing a CAR T. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. We've done various diabetes studies, which we're hopefully we're having more, but also, studies in calling like alcoholic liver steatohepatitis we did. We are also, got some new studies where we're looking at some AI-driven or AA studies because you can't get away from it. It's coming. So let's move on. These are sort of some of the key studies that we're doing that I just want to highlight. This is a study from a company called Neurona. It's a GABAergic interneuron cell that is used for focal epilepsy. And Dr. She's our local PI. And now many of the studies we do are first-in-human studies. There are studies, this is the first time that they're being given. And so mainly in a first-in-human study, we're looking at safety. We're trying to make sure is this product safe? What's the dose that we should use in further studies? So here we have the very first sort of number of patients, but we've seen this remarkable response in terms of these people that are gone from, multiple seizures a month to having like maybe 1 or 2 that are not that they can barely notice. Just a tremendous response that we've seen with this. There still has a lot of work to them. These people are still in follow-up. They're still enrolling. There are ones that you have to see if it's going to be durable. Do the cells stay along? Does the effect continue? They were on immunosuppressive therapy at first. You have to see what happens after immunosuppressive taken away. But I just have to highlight that one because so successful it appears to be. This is our HIV study, and we're using a CAR T approach. As many of you may know, HIV is it's a retrovirus. It's very difficult we can't really cure it because it integrates into our DNA, especially in our T cells. And so you have to take continuous oral therapies, or now maybe some injectable therapies, but continuous antiviral therapy to control HIV. So, are there other approaches that we could actually cure it or have a sustainable treatment where you wouldn't need to take any sort of pharmaceutical? So the idea is to try and get rid of that reservoir or control that reservoir with a CAR T therapy. These are sort of a second generation CAR T approach where there's target both for CMV and HIV and this is important up in your right-hand corner to see the construct of what a CAR T is, or a chimeric antigen receptor T cell. This is kind of consistent through other CAR Ts, how they manufacture them. There's always the CD3 region at the bottom, and then sort of a co-stimulatory section below the membrane. And then we have the linker region, and then the actual one that attaches to the target. In this case, it was modeled after a broadly neutralizing antibody that has that we know neutralizes, somewhere over 90% of HIV strains tested. So that's why the hope is that this will. And we're on our third patient already. We screen the patients, we send them to City of Hope for treatment, and then they come back for follow-up. Here's some newer studies that were just starting up. This one is a phase 1 study as well, of course, for B-cell mediated autoimmune disorders. And the focus here is on multiple sclerosis or progressive multiple sclerosis. So we're really seeing a burgeoning in the field around CAR T therapies that target immune modulation. And that can, so now we're seeing a lot of buzz around rheumatological diseases and then GI diseases that are more autoimmune related. In this case, it's an anti-CD19 sort of allogeneic product. And they do some gene editing to allow this so that it'll work, particularly in that co-stimulatory region of the CAR T construct. And so this is actively enrolling now, and hopefully we'll have someone on very shortly. But MS is a key target for this kind of approach. But like I said, we're also seeing this going to other autoimmune type diseases, and that's, I think, is the future of some of the cell therapies, is really expanding to all branches of medicine where we can modulate that immune system. This study, we've done already spinal cord injury studies. Dr. Chachi's been our lead PI for many of these. He's a neurosurgeon here on campus. And we're using a product. It's already been tested, and on the right-hand panel, this is the data from their previous studies. So in these, I believe these were acute thoracic spinal cord injury patients receiving this product. And on the left-hand side of that, you see the diagram is what their their EMG sort of responses were before treatment and then after. So you see the green sort of moving down the body, which means that you've additionally got some activity in those dermatomes that were before they did not have activity. So though maybe this isn't them, getting up and walking again, but it's, we're really seeing some progress. And you're always going to start in that thoracic region because you don't want to go right to the cervical, which is really a place that controls breathing, fine motor. So usually we always start with that thoracic, and then if that looks successful, they can move to a cervical region. In this particular study, we're using that product, so we'll see some of those outcomes again, but it really is to test a novel device to deliver those cells, which is developed in-house here by one of our investigators. And so this is a study that's going to test whether how well that works, and we'll see some additional outcomes. But spinal cord injury is still one of our topics that we've been started with and we continue to be active in.
Okay. Great to be discussing. And so I think, one thing when we think about these regenerative therapies, they're living drugs. And so whether we're restoring function, like Dr. Morris mentioned, trying to fight cancer, the idea is we treat patients with a single dose of these treatments, and that these patients can have lifelong restoration, decrease in seizure function, the number of seizures, increase in spinal function, ability to move. And so I think this is an area that we're very interested in. But the clinical service that takes care of these patients, it takes a village. And as you heard from Dr. Morris, whether it's from the start of the development of the product, whether it's the conception of the idea, getting these through regulatory bodies, including the FDA, to get an IND, to getting these patients taken care of, including many of these getting intraoperative administration of these agents. It takes a village, and also then the side effects that can happen from a living drug. You can get inflammation, for example, severe cytokine release syndrome. You can get neurologic syndromes related to autoinflammation. So all these are potential avenues of clinical need. And so this is an area that in EPIC, if you're taking care of patients, you can refer to our service to help take care of patients that Dr. Morris mentioned. And then when we talk about the clinical trials that help take care of these patients, it's all about precision oncology, trying to use the same product for everyone we've not found works, whether it's a drug, whether it's an antibody, whether it's chemotherapy even. And so for cell therapy, you want to be able to match patients. One of the real risks with any cellular immunotherapy for patients with cancer is the friendly fire, the off-tumor, on-target toxicity. And so one example of the study that Dr. Morris mentioned earlier is working with A2 Bio, which is a company, and there's several of these that have developed blockers. So you block the antigen that would otherwise lead to autoimmune effects, meanwhile activating to kill the tumor in terms of overall immune activation. The goal really is to find these neoantigens, those unique characteristics of the tumor that we can otherwise, that can be a unique Achilles heel. And so when we see these targets, they're pan-cancer, they're across multiple solid tumors. And so we see here that HLA-LOH, which is the safety feature here, is present in multiple different cancer types. And many of these cancer types, for example, pancreatic cancer, lung cancer, you see ovarian cancer, in the second and third line space, it can be less than 6 months survival. And so these are patients very much in need, and when you can get a remission, these patients can actually have durable remissions because they have a living drug. And so I wanted to talk about some of the ways which artificial intelligence can be used. I want to invite back Dr. Morris for that part of the discussion.
Yeah, I was going to continue on with some of the other studies we're doing, which are unique to us. I mean, in this one, we've been, over time, we felt maybe you've been to some of our events where we've had Ria, who is a compassion-enabled humanoid. And so one of the studies where we're doing is trying to see how patients might, what's their perception of interacting with a humanoid in the clinic. Now, they're not giving medical advice or anything like that. We just want to get the feeling for what do people think of if they had to, interact with, is there a favorable response or unfavorable response? Because the idea is that, maybe we could have, here's a picture of Ria up there that looks sort of humanoid, but and can interact and have facial expressions, and could be a companion for the elderly, companion to people that are living on their own, or people with learning disabilities. Or could they be someone that could provide additional information as an extender in a clinical setting? This is we're a ways from seeing that. The first steps, though, is to see what do people think of this? And so one of the studies we're trying to do is get Ria just in a room, have patients interact, and give us their impressions of them. So this is where some is going to, and we were just talking earlier, and somebody's going, well, in Japan they're already using these companion robots because of their burgeoning sort of elderly populations. So we're a little bit of AI creeping into our studies. Here's our team. This is in the KOP space, and many of our clinical trial staff. We have, all our team that works on the wards as well. Above are the mission patches for space missions from Dr. Jameson. In fact, there's another one missing because it just got done last month for the 8th one in terms of putting organoids into space. And it's not, I would say that that's maybe the future of testing drugs, because that's one of the things that's happening in these space missions, is testing new drugs to see if they can have an effect, because we know that in space that cancer rapidly grows. We know that mutations occur very quickly, and so it may be a model for testing new products, and that's kind of what we've been doing in some of these experiments, and those will filter into into studies that we're going to do in humans later on. So if you have further questions, contact, or what you're interested in any of these studies. I put in Jameson's contact here at the end so that you have an email or someone that you could reach out to, and he could lead you to the right person in our clinical center to answer your question. And with that, I think we're going to take some questions. Dr. Patel and I will go sit up in the hot seats.
Okay, so let's give them some tough questions. Anyway, so we're here to answer your questions. We've got Dr. Patel, Dr. Morris, but also Jameson here, and Michelle and I, Maria, Ken is here, Jake, Jane, our biorepository director, Inga. We've got a lot of people, Emma here, who also works for the biorepository. So there's a lot of infrastructure that we can help out with. Okay, does anybody have a question? We have about, I think it's $3 billion left for CIRM funding. So that's the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine, and CIRM is going big or going home on the CLIN grants. So preclinical development has now replaced CLIN 1 and translational, and then we've got the CLIN 2s. How does the START team or the Sanford Stem Cell Clinical Center support the implementation and administration of these trials? That's a question for both of you.
I guess I could speak to that. I mean, the START team is really a resource for anybody on campus, investigators that want to, try and move a product forward. And I think that, particularly if you want assistance with CIRM grants, I don't know if you looked recently, but there's been a sort of a change in sort of how they structured those grants. So there's really some new dimensions that you need to think about. And the other thing that that I really sort of emphasize with them is how they can help you decide what those first steps are to get to the FDA to give you that approval to move forward into a human study. I don't know if you had anything to add.
No, I think it's a great question, and it's kind of going where the puck is heading in terms of funding. Is CIRM very much is about making sure there are clinical products that can help patients. And so we've worked with folks on developing grants, clinical trial protocols to really maximize success. Many of these clinical trials, they have unique features related to how CIRM is thinking about serving the whole state, for example, both geographically and demographically, thinking about utilizing resources within the CIRM network, for example, patient support programs for travel, and then also thinking about making sure we're good partners to often the more inland areas and more rural areas that don't have an alpha clinic, for example, the community care centers of excellence kind of proposals. And so we're always happy to meet and talk about how we can best foster your grant clinically, and then with the hope, as Dr. Morris mentioned earlier, many of the trials we've done actually are now FDA-approved products that we give in the standard of care, and we really take a lot of pride in that, because that means we're not only helping those patients in a study with a disease that's very severe, but also ensuring that more patients benefit from the science that you guys are working so hard on.
So we have a question in the audience. I think you've got the microphone. Yeah. Yes, please, go ahead. Yes,
this is a question to both of you. I know, Dr. Morris, you wanted to add more slides. So my question is, I assume 80% is autologous, and how many allogeneic cell therapies would you have currently in your clinical trials? Is there any, or do we have to go international, or?
Oh, I don't know if I could really know the answer to that. Do you know, Kat?
Of the 37 clinical trials, 2 are allogeneic at the moment. One is, actually 3. One is an induced pluripotent stem cell product, dopaminergic progenitor, Sumitomo, for Parkinson's disease. The Aspen, I believe, is also allogeneic. And then the oligodendrocyte progenitor cell product that we're doing the dose study in to test that device, that's a Geron product. It's also allogeneic. Allogeneic, for everybody that doesn't know this fancy terminology, is somebody else's stem cells. Autologous is your own. So a lot of our therapies, we do small molecules, biologic, cellular therapeutics. The CAR T cell products we're considering separately, but are generally your own. They can be allogeneic, but in terms of the first in human stuff, we've focused on allogeneic so far.
And that slide that I was looking for was I had put in sort of is our Parkinson's disease study, which I also wanted to highlight, is that this is a product that was developed by Sumitomo in Japan, has data published in Nature where they did see increased dopaminergic activity in people that had received this product, and we've just recently done the first patient in North America again with Dr. Chachi. And I mean that there's a lot of interest in Parkinson's disease. It seems something that would be very targetable since it's a very specific what's missing in Parkinson's disease. So I see that there's going to be that regenerative medicine approaches to Parkinson's disease is probably going to be something that could be reality.
I know there are many more questions. Marcy, you had a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the CIRM grant structure that you were talking about. That's a service. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, could you expand a little bit? Is that just for clinical areas, or is that also for industry, or are there guidelines? Do you have could you expand a little more on that?
Sure, and I mean, and even one of our folks could who from the group that are here could expand on it. But yeah, I think it's open to everybody. It does also do that are some of the DISC grants, which are sort of the earlier study grants that they've helped with those as well. I think the idea is that is that you need to speak to them in terms of if it is something that is in their sort of wheelhouse to do. I don't know, Maria, if you wanted to speak more about it.
Sure. So with the new grant system that's coming out or that's already been released, if you're talking industry or academic, they're still going to have to fill out the same application. Obviously, that'll be the same. Just the way that they're capturing the information is new. They've revamped it so that way you're looking really at the product, you're thinking further along so that you could take it from development all the way onto a clinical trial. They're still learning some new things with this new formatting, but it is, from what I've seen, sorry, I've just been back since Monday. So after reviewing it, there are some new changes, but I think their new formatting, we just still have to kind of identify exactly what pieces that they want, make it clear for our investigators, and that's something that we've previously created a training for this. I'm going to be revamping it to accommodate these new requirements.
Yeah, so as the Alpha Clinic director here since 2015, I can say that CIRM has morphed, I think, in mainly good ways. We have the DISC grant opportunities. Those are discovery grant, but they're really quite translational. So it's good to work with our START team to see where you fit in. Again, Jameson can be the conduit for this, and we can help you with your grant applications. You do have to contact CIRM first for some of these opportunities, not for the DISCs, but for the preclinical development, PDEV grants, you do need to contact CIRM to make sure you're in line with what they're thinking. When you submit your grant application, you have to think there's a 30-day period to make sure that you've got all your documents in place, and then they'll say it's out for review now. Then it goes to the grants working group. The grant working group members are actually on the CIRM website. You can see who they are. This is a public organization, California funded. And then for the CLIN2 grants, you really need to have got through the IND process. So IND stands for Investigational New Drug Application. Our team can help you with the pre-IND and IND. We do tend to help industry a lot because we've got a very active environment, not just here in San Diego where we have 600 biotech and pharma companies, but actually they're coming from outside of San Diego. CIRM is really focusing on work done in California. They really prefer that. So if you're a company, if you're sitting in the audience for a company, you actually have to have at least 4 California employees. You have to fund a certain percentage of the total cost, and you have to show that you've got that money in the bank. They will ask for your bank statement. So these are the changes that have happened. We have a great advance here on campus. Thanks to Chris Longhurst and Amy Sidipati, the CEO of our hospital, Patty Mason, and the Vice Chancellor of Health Sciences, John Carruthers. We have Epic. A lot of us are on Epic as patients, and they have the whole research portal called Cosmos. So we can see in those 200 million people on Cosmos, how many people actually have Ewing sarcoma, or whatever the target of your particular grant is. Target product profile is something that Sheldon teaches in his course on translational regenerative medicine. And then we can work with the patients that get admitted, thanks to Sandeep Patel, who is actually the director of the clinical service, with Dan Kaufman being the administrative director. So we have all sorts of resources for you. You can plug and play. And then financially, I mean, Michelle's the leader here. We've been able to do budgets for people. Jameson has also been able to strategize. So please contact us. I know there are many questions, and that's a lot to fill in. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just going to go with this person because we're moving to different sides of the room. Okay, the person in the mask.
My first question is about the overhead involving the use of the alpha clinics. So the second question is about the potential for producing the cells at GMP environment. Is that also available?
Right. So for the second question, that's really the Advanced Cell Therapy Lab, and they can do all those things in terms of making it GMP materials for you. And it's best to, talking to Dr. Kaufman about that one, or we can direct it from Jameson if you have need for that. And they definitely are looking for business and are able to help you. For the first question, yeah, the way we structure it is it's like we have services that are sort of a la carte, like clinical coordination, regulatory help. We do data management. We can create databases that are Part 11 compliant. So each one of those can create a budget. We have a recharge system so that if you need a coordinator for X amount of time, you just have to pay for an hourly rate. So, and those things can be then incorporated in your budgets when you put in your either if for sponsors when we're doing the contracting, or if you're putting in a grant, you can put those in your budget submission.
I'll comment on the overhead just because Michelle and I handle all the budgets. Indirect cost recovery is the same for CIRM grants. It's a full-on indirect cost. They have not cut this. It's California state funding. It is not subject to federal funding decreases in indirect costs. So in terms of overhead, our overhead, we substantially defray the costs of doing this for investigators. Thank you, Denny Sanford, if you're listening. So Denny Sanford has given us substantial funding to be able to support these erudite discoveries and get them to the clinic. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible, actually.
But I don't have a number yet. Do you have a number, approximate number? Is it 50%?
I think it's about 60% is what CIRM pays, but Michelle, you can comment a little bit.
So the indirect rate, actually, the way that CIRM does it, they have an indirect rate and a facilities cost. So the total of all of that is actually 58.4%. If you're doing a standard sponsored research clinical trial at the university, it's 33%. You're welcome. Did you have any other questions?
I think actually we'll move on because we want to put Sandeep and Sheldon on the spot more. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Mia. I'm a co-founder and CEO of a company called Visicel Medical. I have a very similar follow-up question. So if an industry is sponsoring clinical trials at Alpha Clinic, how do they engage and when is the right time to engage? And is it phase 1 or phase 2 or how far you could take it? And then the follow-up question is relating to indirect because for the company, there will be a private sector rate rather than the indirect rate. So if you could touch base on a few of those.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we like partnering. We like partnering early. Just to give an example, we partnered with a local company who just actually visited with us in person. We're over on CNT right next to the Cancer Center in Athena, just here on main campus. We wrote them the letter of support for CIRM, I think about 6 months ago. And so we really want to get involved early. CIRM, I think, wants to see that continued contact with us. And then now we're going to be deploying their clinical trial, and they came to us for input on clinical trials. We had some of the investigators, as who are part of our Alpha Clinic Experts program, comment on the protocol as well. And so that all is something we like to help soup to nuts. So phase 1, phase 2, preclinical. And I think CIRM also really values that connection because they're getting inundated, right, with applications, and to show that connection, especially with the existing Alpha Clinic site, and then have your study potentially throughout the entire network as well, serving Northern California, Southern California as well, is something they're keen on. In terms of the question around indirect rates, back to Sheldon's point, there's the a la carte services for clinical research. The clinical trial IDC is 33%, inflation, 33%. And so that's typically the rate that industry sponsors pay for our clinical work. But I think we've had multiple successes with local companies. They really want to see California companies thrive, and they want to see patients in California benefiting from the discoveries of Californian companies such as yours. Sorry, Sheldon.
No, I was just going to add that we do all phases of study. I mean, I think because of the nature of regenerative medicine, we have done a lot of phase 1s because that's where the stage they're at. But we're definitely starting to see those later stages, and we'd love to be doing some phase 2s and 3s, as they come available. And those ones may need multi-site, and this is a good place to tap into the whole network. That's why there's these 9 different sites, and you can act that, like as Dr. Patel said, using more of the Alpha Clinic sites is a real benefit if you're doing a CIRM application. You don't have to, and if you just have the money and you want to do a study, we're there too. You don't need to have a CIRM grant to work with us. And in fact, good, like I mentioned earlier, is that a lot of our industry studies are just straight up industry sponsored studies. That's it?
Probably have other questions. Any other questions? Rob.
So going to a stage even earlier for someone like me and other more basic scientists in the room, that like we're making discoveries that we think have clinical potential, but we don't know where to start from taking it from the lab to that approach. Do you guys offer services that help in that regard, or where do we start? Who do we contact? And
I mean, I think that is sort of what our START team might start giving some hints about in terms of if you really where to go next. I think what you find is there's a lot of work to get to the preclinical stage and that that you'll need to do for investigational new drug application. It usually involves, and that's something that can be done both at your own labs, or sometimes you need to use other CROs that you can pay to do the animal work, because usually what it means is you have to do a battery of tests showing that you've got the target, that you've got safety in animals and enough convincing information. So they will also guide you to those very first FDA interactions. I think that's the interact meeting, and then the pre-pre, and then the pre-IND, and then finally, hopefully, getting you to an application phase. So yeah, it'd be good to engage the people a little earlier. If there's really is, you think that your product is going somewhere and it gets to that, what would I need now to get this to the FDA? And that's a fair question to ask us, and we can give you some guidance on that.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question and a really comprehensive answer. I think we really enjoy these discussions with the basic scientists. And I think CIRM also really likes to see work they fund get in the clinic. And so the same answer I was giving to some of our industry colleagues, just having these discussions very early on. There may be mechanisms. You can sometimes marry philanthropy. There may be someone who's really interested in funding a clinical trial in a particular area. But then also thinking just the basic questions, like how many patients are seen at UCSD with this disease, right? We have the ability to query databases for that, and then logistically support those studies when you get to that level. And as Dr. Morris mentioned, really kind of all phase. But I think it's really a wonderful resource, and I learn as much when I talk to the basic scientists about what's going on, and hopefully the basic scientist gets a sense of clinical need. And we have a set of network experts at UCSD that cover all these diseases that Dr. Morris was mentioning earlier. So we have a neurology expert, we have a surgery expert, we have even with an oncology of disease experts by different disciplines. And so really we can make that connection, and we really want to foster these because I think they're great for our patients. And it's a win-win in terms of how we view it, but also how CIRM views it as well.
It's such a great question, Rob, as well, because not everything has to be a therapeutic. It could be a diagnostic. It could be a prognostication tool. It could fit in with Jameson's Stellar Health Plan for all of us. So Jameson, did you want to mention the Stellar Health program that you're instigating with Sheldon and Sandeep and Nicole, who runs our clinic?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jameson. I'm the other Jameson. So we've been working up really impactful ways of, distributing the kinds of innovations that we have here for the region. And one of them is essentially a new service line where there's more frequent profiling and imaging done in the preventative space. Space here, not space in space, but could be beneficial for those who are, our best and brightest going into more dangerous situations that need this kind of, extra care, extra touch. So we've been developing that, and there's a lot of real interest in some of the technologies that are coming out of some of the discovery teams that are here, and really rapidly then moving into the clinic. So I guess my main plug as someone who's an operations guy is watching some of these ideas come through that question of how can I get involved to the teams here that are actually in the clinic, and then to staff like myself and my team who's largely in the back corner there, shout out to them, can get this rolling. So healthcare implementation it seems like it might be pretty far away, but if you get in touch with me or Vicky, we can get you in touch with Vicky's team largely to think through the parts of the puzzle that Sheldon was, that Dr. Morris was outlining, and then the excitement that Dr. Patel was mentioning.
So we have a whole operations team, as Jameson was alluding to. We can help you with some of the qualification methods. So the FDA will ask, what is the target population? What is your label going to look like at the end of the day, which is a hard question to answer when you haven't really got very far down the road. You need a business plan, and I think this is where our team can help you. But also for some of the qualification methods, we're thinking for the FDA, they want proof of mechanism. They want proof of concept data, and we usually patient-derived materials. So we've got our director of the biorepository here for the Sanford Stem Cell Institute. We do have a checkbox of activities for the Sanford Stem Cell Clinical Center, but we're thinking of adding that for the biorepository. So Inga will be your best friend, Inga Vanderwerf. Ken is a project manager. Maria helps you to know how many people in the state or in the country or in the world have the target indication you're looking at. And then we've got our whole advancement team. So we've got lots of support. Any other questions for Dr. Patel?
I was going to pick up on something, though, that Dr. Patel brought up, is that we have a disease team experts that we are part of the Alpha Clinic. And so sometimes people have, or a sponsor has a product, and and we can find that PI that they need, or that site PI, and connect you. And I think the best way is to come to us, and then we'll help do that. You can also, find a PI that you already are working with, and then we can work with that PI as well. It works either way. But if you're just needing, a study done and you don't know where to turn to, we can also direct you to those folks at UC San Diego to help that can be the PI or site PI for that study.
Anything else? Last words, Dr. Patel, Dr. Morris. Oh, we've got Marcy has another question. Okay.
I was just wondering, do you guys work exclusively with just like UCSD's IRB teams, or do you have several different IRBs so that you can, looks like a whole scope of services are offered, so.
Yeah, we do both, and I'll let Dr. Patel actually answer. I got to get him to talk some more.
No. It's a great question. So we offer both local as well as central IRBs, local UCSD IRB as well as central commercial IRB, the two at Vara and Western. And so, and oftentimes for multi-site protocols, the commercial IRBs are actually favored because they can open multiple sites simultaneously, as opposed to having to go into each IRB kind of sequentially and waiting for them. So long and short, we find a way to make it work on the IRB side, and both local and central options are available.
Sounds like we need to expand the translational regenerative medicine course and get Maria and Vicky doing an expanded version, and Dr. Patel. How do you get your new therapy to clinical trials together with Sheldon? This is
how a bill becomes a law. It's how it becomes a drug. Right?
It'll become an expanded set of courses.
Yeah, I think we could even do like another lecture one day on that.
I think we can expand the courses, right, Rob? Right, Sherry? Yes. So we'll be doing that. I think the point of today's town hall is that we have a lot of services. The Sanford Stem Cell Clinical Center is open for business. We get a lot of requests from industry. The reason we're here is we want to have an equal partnership with people in academia, because industry is taking full advantage of the resources we put in place. So we hope that academic investigators will as well. Thank you, Dr. Morris, Dr. Patel.